And just like that, we're live. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to David Divine Broadcasted and an episode of Severely Cinematic. And tonight we are joined with Vinnie Langdon. Vinnie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm
welcome.
feeling severely excited for this.
Oh, you're severely excited. I like how you put that in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Vinny, normally I used to go live quite a bit. We just do David Divine Broadcasted, but I'm left this to be a episode of Severely Cinematics because it's pretty proper that you would fit into that category pretty well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would say definitely. Yeah, I've been making films since I was 14 years old, and I grew up in the 90s where my grandfather and my dad would, have the big VHS camcorders and filming all the holidays, Easter, and oh, how cute. There's Vinny's first Christmas. There's his first birthday, blah, blah, blah. Then the following holiday, we'd gather around the living room and play those videos, and that always ingrained in my head. And I think when you get older, people say, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it was either, well, I could be a cameraman like my grandpa and dad. I could be an actor. I could make movies. And then, yeah, just turned it into a career and still striving for that.
That's awesome. Welcome in, everybody. Hey, Shangy and everybody else watching, welcome. Again, we have Vinnie Langdon here. We're going to talk about how he got into, well, he told us a little bit how he got into it in his film career. But I was going to bring out my props, but time got away from me because I was editing some video, oddly enough. And, but I still have that you bring up your dad, I think, or your grandfather had that old equipment, the maybe the 8 millimeter reel to reel player and the camera with the big bright light. Well, I still have all that stuff, and it's right over there somewhere. I know we were talking
Yes.
backstage about equipment that we have uh, still, and I still have those things. And I can remember every home movie my dad would shoot. It had this big, huge, bright light that would burn you. And so most of our home movies all were like people blocking the light out of their eyes.
Washed out, yeah.
Yeah,
That is cool. Yeah, and for me, it was watching shows like Mad TV and SNL, and of course, in school, you get forced into doing theater and acting classes or whatever, and I just was like watching celebrities and documentaries on people like Elvis, and it's like, wow, they made so much money doing what they love to do. So I took that into consideration. I went to a local TV station in my hometown back in Vacaville, California, and they had an opportunity. They had a little ad on their little public access station, and it says, "Do you want your own show?" And I was like, "Who wouldn't, right?" So I went down there, and to be surprised, not really that many people did. They were like, "Oh, this young kid wants his own show. What are you gonna do?" And I had friends that were in local bands, and I said, "Let me interview bands." And with the times changing, social media was just in the early stages, and people said, put your videos up on, social media, MySpace, Twitter, Facebook at the early days of Facebook. And it just, as you know, David, being a musician yourself, my brother's in a band, my cousin's in a band, this one plays, oh, you should interview my drummer. He has like 4 other band projects. And it just went on for 17 years of my career was traveling and interviewing bands and just for a public access TV station. So, humble to do that. And I kind of just went with the flow, and I still do, there's no like official plan of like, hey, I want to make movies, or oh, I want to do the TV thing or acting. It's, hey, if we need Vinny to do this, sign me up, I'll give it a shot.
yeah, that's awesome. So how old were you when you went down to the public access, the PBS or the public access? I know we have that every town probably has it, but they really do put out some good content. A lot of documentaries and stuff like that. But at what age did you go down there?
I was only like 14 years old, and I was young and eager, and people always question like, man, how did you do so much? And I think it's because I was just a kid. I had that drive. If I were to do it at my age, I'd say, man, let me have some coffee first and roll out of bed and figure out what I want to do
Right,
first before.
right.
And I think when you're young, you don't even have that mentality. You just do it. You just live in the moment. You're like, okay, I don't care what people think about me. I'm just gonna go out and interview these bands, and if I look stupid or sound stupid, who cares? I just learn. But if I were to do that at my age now, being almost 36 years old, I'd be like, oh God, I got to worry about doing my hair, I got to worry about what I wear, what I look like, what I sound like, and then I didn't care about any of that stuff. I just was like, hey, I'm just a dorky kid, here I am hanging backstage with, Testament and Exodus and Slayer and Anthrax and just living the life.
Good to see you, Pam. What was the first band that you interviewed on the public access?
It probably was like a local cover band, just, hey, we play 80s and 90s music, and here I am interviewing them like, oh, like at the time, not really being familiar with the music world, was just like, wow, these guys are like rock stars, but like they're just like a local band that's playing, 80s and 90s music, like that's it. One of the first guests that was like had a notoriety was actually a country singer who was playing at the local county fair. His name was Kevin Sharp. He had like did a cover of that song Nobody Knows, went on the Billboard charts in 1997, and it was like, I remember back then I would have to like send out, formal interview requests, and I would have to like write out a letter and mail it to them or send it like through fax back then. And I remember the singer personally calling me, and he's like asking my parents, "Hi, is Mr. Vinnie Langdon home? My
Right.
name's Kevin Sharp, and I'm from, Tennessee, and I'd like to do an interview at Vinnie." And my parents were like, "Oh my gosh, like someone famous is calling the house." And that was cool. And then, of course, I had bigger and better guests down the road, and just kind of snowballed from there.
That's wild. So right away you had people calling your house, and it gets addicting too. Then, how you start to gain a little more confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think all the artists were very friendly towards me, knowing that I was just a teenager, just getting my feet wet. Of course, I probably made mistakes along the way, asking stupid questions like, hey, when you're home from tour, what does your mom and dad cook you? And it's like, well, you just asked like a big, like A-list band that question, like, don't ever do that again, and I kind of learned as I went. So it was very fun. Quite a journey.
Yeah, yeah. What? But I don't know. Sometimes those questions, those questions are probably welcomed rather than the same old questions all the time.
Right.
And plus being young and they understood. But Pam's laid down your link into the chat there, so if anybody wants to click over and subscribe to Vinny, you could see his projects. And I don't know how many videos do you have? Thousands of videos up there.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of in the last couple of months I've been working on like just as a business aspect of it, kind of like removing some of the lesser quality films and
Right.
videos, and I'm like, all right, you don't know who's really watching your content. And sometimes you go out in public and you're like, yeah, check out my YouTube channel, and you're hoping that when they check out your YouTube channel, they're looking at the videos that are in the like hundreds of thousands views, and they're like, yeah, I saw a video, you were in your backyard with your dog like wrestling, and it's like, oh god, that was like, you were supposed to look at like the good videos, not just
Right.
me
Yeah.
like, singing, a heartbreak song or something on YouTube, and like, oh crap, you saw that? How embarrassing.
Right. I know. I know. I probably have just as many on private as I do published, but I do that too, where I sometimes I just like to put, make a short of picking blueberries, and I think, is this stupid? Or I put hashtag, keep it simple, and like it doesn't fit in with the B movies and the music stuff. But I just like to film everything. So hopefully, and actually some of those get more hits anyway. So, but I know what you mean. You do like to film everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's nothing. I mean, I personally get bored easily. So if it's like, even interviewing the bands, there was a point in my career after doing it for, up until the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, I'm not a 16, 17-year-old kid anymore. I'm in my, late 20s, early 30s. And it's like, is this even cool anymore? Is this fun? Is this like what the chicks are into? Or are they just like, oh, there's Vinny again interviewing a band, and it gets, boring quickly. So you gotta say, how do I make this relevant? How do I make it more exciting? I think the whole process of like interviewing bands was cool in the 80s and 90s, during the days of MTV and VH1, where you would want to consume music videos all day. But now we have so much content, it gets hard to be in the shuffle, and you try to do what, is relevant. And that's kind of, I think it's a process as a filmmaker and a videographer to, you have to kind of align yourself with those patterns. You can't just go, oh, I'm going to do cooking videos because that's what's relevant now. But in 6 months, it might be like, documentaries on health. And you're like, that's not really what I'm into. But if I do that, I'll gain more of a following. And then in another 6 months, I'll be interviewing bands again. And then those people will be hooked. So it's quite a journey for sure.
Yeah, it has changed a lot. I know I used to carry the 8 millimeter and was it high C everywhere I went, and I remember in the '90s, people making fun of me like, "Wow, do you live on like you're on vacation filming everything?" And and it transferred from that right to everybody films everything constantly now, which
Right.
is wild. How did we get here?
Yeah, and then I've had conversations with other filmmakers, and it is discouraging. And even fellow YouTubers, I go, here we are as the original content creators, where you and I can sit here and say, hey, let's go do a short film about like a lady that is a chef and she makes the best eggplant parmesan in town. So we're gonna go and we're gonna set up a scheduled date. We're gonna go film. We're gonna like just shoot all these fancy creative camera angles, and then we'll interview her. We'll put some B-roll footage over it. We'll add some music. We'll spend a couple hours just cycling through music. So we already spent, invested 50, 60, 70 hours into this project. Meanwhile, you have a teenager, a new influencer that just goes, hey, what's up, guys? Today I'm making eggplant parmesan. Here it is. Boom, boom,
Yeah,
boom. And they're getting the millions of views. Meanwhile, we get snubbed, and we're like, wait a minute, that was great. That was original. Like, how come nobody's watching our stuff? But you got to go with the flow. And I think that's what I personally lack is I'm not really big into the social media stuff. Maybe when I was in my early 20s, I had a thing for it where I was like, got to be on Snapchat, got to be on Twitter, got to be on Instagram. And now I'm like, what the heck is Instagram? Like, I don't have time to reply to messages.
right.
you know?
Yeah, yeah. It is wild that now you could just like you said, you could just whip out your phone and if you're a young influencer, you get millions of views and but I mean, I think it's changed what movie view, at movie theaters. It's changed the culture. People
Yeah.
have theaters at home now too. So, you
Right.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
75-inch TVs. So they'd rather sit there than go to the movie theater. So yeah, I think things do evolve. That's what you got to do. You got to evolve with it, I guess. I think last time we went and saw Charlie Band, he was saying that he's going to give a shot to these, I guess, 30-second movies or something like that. It's something ridiculous. I didn't catch what the website was or if it's trending all over the place, but that's really getting a lot of focus, I guess. So he's going to try out 30-second movies. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's definitely challenging, but yeah, you just gotta, yeah. I mean, just like even between the 80s and now, it's not really that long of a time period. We're not talking, centuries. We're talking, 30 years or so, and how quick things have changed within that period. So you go into the, future, you don't know where it's going to lead, and I think that makes it harder for us filmmakers because, just getting funding to shoot a film or even completing a film, you got to figure out, well, who's going to see this film? How do I market it? And but when everyone and their mom and dad are trying to do the same exact thing, it makes it tougher. And uh, oh, I want to get a film on Amazon. Well, yeah, now everybody's trying to do that. And even though it was new 15, 20 years ago, but now so many people are doing it that makes it a little bit harder, and that's frustrating. And I think that's why a lot of people throw in the towel and they're like, yep, I can't do it, I'm done. But the real ones stick with it.
Yeah, and you gotta and I think it drives the point home even more that to really focus on what you want to do, right? Because you can't try to follow trends, can you? I mean, because it's already over by the time you're following it.
Exactly, that is true. Yeah, people are
But
like, "Hey,
yeah,
Vinny, I saw this was going viral on YouTube. Why don't you do that?" It's like, because if I do that, it's not going to go viral. Like,
hmm
it already went viral. So, like, there's no shock value there. So
Right. Awesome. Again, if you have a question, type it in the chat there. And there's Vinny's link. Also, Vinny's link's in the description below. So you can, if you're watching in the future, you can click on over there and subscribe and see what he's got going on. So let's shift to what you just finished. Are you talking about that yet? Uh, did he? Oh, did I freeze? Let's see. Hello? Hello, hello.
yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, can you?
Uh,
All right. You can hear me?
yep, I can hear you.
So what the project you just finished, are you talking about that yet? The one you're just kind of wrapping up now?
Yeah, so I'm in post production still of a short film I did. It's called Ramshackle. It'll be coming out, probably available online towards the end of this year. But it's, it's definitely every film project is a learning lesson, and you learn as you go. And the goal is just let's try to get it into film festivals and see what happens. And it is a competitive, sport, as you want to call it. What normally the process is that you create a short film, the film is completed. You're obviously proud of it. It's like having a child where you're like, this is my baby. I can't wait to show the world. And then you throw it in film festivals, and you have the hopes of that. You do get recognized for it. You put a lot of work and energy into it. You hope that you can get, an award like, best actor or, best cinematographer. You get recognized for your talents. But at the end of the line, you're hoping that not only are you getting those awards, because sure, for bragging rights, it's exciting. I think the last award I got was like not this, like last January or this January, and I won like best comedic actor. And it's like, oh, that's cool. I won best comedic actor at a film festival. That feels great. I feel great. I'm excited about it. But then now we're in July and nobody talks about it. And they're like, oh, that's cool, man. So last year. So it's the same essence of that. So that's not really like the goal. The goal is that you're just hoping that someone will watch your work and be like, hey, I really like these aspects of your project that you did. You had good acting in your film, you had good editing, a good storyline. I would like to work with you or offer you a role to come work with me. And that's what it's all about, is just growing your network by doing these experimental projects. And if one of them takes off, and just like writing a song where it's like, wow, that song is so good, like, that's a hit song, and that's exciting too. And so it's like playing the lotto. It's like 1 in a million chances, or even more than that, to have a successful film. But I've been doing this since I was 14, David. So it's, I don't, no matter what, if I put out good top quality productions or they're mediocre, or 10 people watch on the internet, bootlegging the movie, whatever, I'm cool with that. I'm an artist. It's like I just want to get my work out and have a story to tell and a platform. And I'm humble and thankful for whoever watches and enjoys it. And if one day, someone sees it that is at the caliber of a Scorsese or George Lucas or Steven Spielberg and says, wow, this Vinnie Langdon dude's very impressive and talented. He's been working his butt off since he was a teenager. Let's hire him to, work on one of our movies. It's like, yeah, that would be the dream. That would be cool. Is that the ultimate goal? No, I just want to keep doing this. So when I become your age and like 70, 80, 90 years old and look back on life, if I make it that long, and just say,
Right.
hey, I at least enjoyed my life,
Right.
So,
Right. So how many films have you made?
so me, I am up to about 50, and that
Wow.
is directing short films. I've attempted to make a couple features. I believe I made like 4 feature films, and most of them were, shy of the feature length. Like it was like, oh, okay, well, we got to cut out these scenes because it's just making the film not look great. So, like average, like a 40-minute film, it's like, okay, this is cool. Um, but yeah, so that's like me personally, like directing and producing the film. As far as like acting in other people's movies, like add another 20, 30 short films on top of that. So it's insane to think of, in the early days of doing my videos and stuff, I was like looked on actors on IMDb, Internet Movie Database, for those who are not familiar with that. And I would look at some of my favorite actors and say, wow, this person did 100 movies, and this person done 100 films, and I'm like, I want to do that one day. I want to be able to be like, yeah, I did 120 movies. No big deal.
So you
So,
reached the 100 movie mark, huh? So do you
quite
have these?
almost.
Are these compiled on your channel, on your YouTube channel, or where can people look at these 50 movies?
Yeah, yeah. So you could just Google my name, Vinnie Langdon. You can look up on YouTube, Vinnie Langdon short films. There is a playlist on my YouTube channel that has short films. Some of them are, currently in film festival circuits of like some of the recent short films that I have produced. So some of those might not be available. So you might see like, oh, there's only 40 or 45 films out there. The rest of them are playing at short film festivals or whatever. But yeah, no, I love it. And just to go to these festivals in person and get the audience's reaction, and people say, hey, I liked what you did there. It's like makes you feel good. So another reason to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, what's this film a festival cycle? Is there a cycle like you mentioned earlier? You won an award in January, and then people aren't talking about it now in the summertime.
Yeah.
So does the cycle start up again,
Yeah, well,
or is
there's
it all year long?
yeah, it's all year long, and just because you have a film and you submit it to a festival doesn't mean you get accepted. It's there's always like a judging process, and oh, hey, your film was great, but we didn't pick it because we only have a 2-hour block on this day, so we can't show it. But best of luck to you, or whatnot. But you just try to get it into as many festivals as you can. And then again, we've heard stories in the film industry of like, something like Napoleon Dynamite. Oh, well, they made this low budget movie. It screened at South by Southwest, which is a big film festival in Austin, Texas. And then they go, oh my gosh, we like it. Let's distribute it to theaters across the country. And that's kind of like your goal, is just like you want to keep continuing making progress. And for me, I've met other people where maybe not like right away. I've met a couple directors in the past couple of years at this film festival in Staten Island, New York, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I met them. Like maybe they'll call me tomorrow and we'll work on a movie together. And then it wasn't until like a year later someone would call me and say, hey, Vinny, I'm working on a film and I remembered you and how nice you were. Let's work on a film together. And that's kind of the goal. You just hope like that continues.
Yeah, right. To network, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I know. I know. Different things I've done before. People have asked, "How much are you?" When I was doing some art shows, people are like, "Are you making money?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm more about actually just meeting people. Actually, rather than the instant gratification of money, right? It's the networking, and then maybe down the lines, whatever. Who knows?
Right, right.
But Mike, welcome. And Mike wants to know, hey, Vinny, have you ever made any horror movies?
Um, I've attempted to make horror films, and
Right.
so here I'll tell you guys a story. There's a short film I made. It was called Zombies Property, and I had a fantastic like zombie makeup artist who came in, special effects, and just took care of the whole cast and made them look spooky and all that. And I kind of took it the wrong way because, like, once I showed the film at a festival, I was like, "Yeah, wait till you guys see this! Like, you're gonna be like, whoa!" And everybody was laughing at the whole thing. They're like, "What a great comedy!" And I was so offended by that. I'm like, "No, it's not supposed to be a comedy. It's supposed to like make you jump out of your seats." And they're like, "Didn't have that effect. It was like really humorous." And I was like, yeah. Um, I do have I have a script for a film. I won't be able to talk about it now, but like down the line, especially like around Halloween, that's when you're like in the mood, right? You watch like, Friday the 13th and all these like, classics where you just like get into that mindset of like, ooh, yeah. And you get inspired to be like, I want to make a film like that. Um, so I do have a short film that is in the works. It's just, putting the budget together and doing it. But I think it would be cool. Like, and as a filmmaker, I try to challenge myself to explore other genres. People tell me you're great at comedy, stick with it. And I'm like, okay, sure, but let me try to do a few dramas as well, or let me try to do, a sci-fi film, like stuff that's out of my element. This way I'm more diverse. So if another like filmmaker approaches me and says, "Hey kid," or like Mike, "Hey, hey Vinny, have you ever done a horror film? I have a horror film I'm working on. Can I work with you?" At least you could say you did it. You have the experience, right? You can't just be like, "Oh, I don't know. I never did horror. Like, I don't know." So
Right.
it's cool to just build that fundament foundation really of, your experience and talent.
I think I love horror movies, but I really I gravitate to horror movies that have comedy in them. For me, the best elements are the ones where they threw in 20 seconds of nudity, comedy, and then horror. So it was
Yeah.
like that was the formula because, and I heard somebody say that because it's easier to scare people that way too because just when they're laughing and off their guard, that's when you scare them, right?
Right, right. Yeah. And you just like you gotta have that shock value where you're just like, whoa, well, I
Right.
wasn't ready for that. And I think a lot of films, modern films, they don't incorporate that. Like I can't even sit here and think of like what was the last film I watched where I like enjoyed it or was like impressed and was like, oh wow, that was great. Like I watch movies on a basis, and I just feel like it just goes through one ear and out the other, and you just like, oh, I don't even know what I watch. Like that's how bad it is these days.
Yeah, they have. Well, I know that. Yeah, I was opening up a NECA blind box the other day, and some couple figures came out that were The Conjuring 2, Annabelle. So at some point, it shifted into that where it was really religious in nature, supernatural, and just straight up scary. You
Mhm.
know, but the 80s and early 90s, you had Night of the Creeps and Return of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead had those elements of comedy in there too.
Sure, right, yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, so yeah, no, I love doing comedy stuff, and I've always and everyone says, surprisingly, like, oh, comedy's so hard to do, but for me, it's a natural thing. I think, we look at someone like Robin Williams who kind of like hid, his self identity within comedy, and I think that is for me personally, that's easy to do. Where, I like controversial topics or whatever, I just kind of like like throw my sense of humor in there, and I'm just like, oh yeah, this is awkward. Let's not talk about this. Let's change the topic to this, right? And I kind of do that with my filmmaking, where it's like you take a sensitive topic or something, or something we've gone through personally, and I'm like, well, let's like laugh about it now that it happened and it's in the past. Let's laugh about it and put it on the screen, and then you hope other people can relate to it and go, oh my gosh, I went through the same thing as you did. So um, comedy's been fun for me, where I sit there, and it's hard. You have to have the right timing in comedy, especially with filmmaking, and it takes a special talent. I think if I tried to edit even a horror film, to put those jump moments or the whoa, like that's all about timing as well. And if you put it in too soon, too early, you don't give enough space for the audience to react to it, then you failed. So yeah, so both worlds of horror and comedy are very challenging, but if you could do it right, stick with it, and that's what I'm trying to learn. But again, I'm still young in my career realistically, where I'm like, it's okay to, let's
Right.
try to
Yeah.
make a creepy horror film and see what the reaction is. Might be good at it, you don't know.
Right. Yeah. You don't
So
know till you try. Right.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Of the most of the 50 films that you've shot, did you write all those? You wrote the story. You wrote
Yeah,
the script.
yeah, mostly. I call it the Woody Allen, equation, because the whole reason I actually started making films was because I loved acting, and when I would seriously get into it in my late teenage years, usually the process is that you take your headshots, you go and you update your resume. You go nowadays, everything's online. You upload your resume online to casting sites, and you hope that you get a call back for an audition, and you apply, and sometimes you don't hear from people, or you don't hear from them for long period of time, and I was kind of discouraged by that style, right? It was like, oh yeah, I auditioned for this movie, I wonder if they'll call me. No, they're not going to call me. So time is precious and time is going by. So if I were to be able to show off my acting abilities and I'm like, yo, I want to be like a bad guy in a movie, I want to be the big tough guy. Well, I would sit there and I'm like, well, I'm going to write a character. Here's a bank robber and he's going to do this and that. Well, who am I going to get to play the part? Well, I'll do it because I want that role, right? And that was kind of like what I've done. And Woody Allen is similar in the aspect of when he would write his films, he would just put a sense of humor into it. He would write it. He would get his camera crew, he would direct it, he would be in front of the camera, behind the camera, and kind of be a control freak. And I think that works. I did experience, like, hey, I wrote a script, let me have someone else direct it, and that never turned out well for me. It was always not the greatest. You'd get the film back and go, that's not my movie, like, don't even release that, that's garbage. But yeah, most of the films I've written, I tried to act in most of them, and even if I couldn't, I would get somebody else to like play the role or whatever. I'll shoot it myself or get an assistant camera operator for the project. And but yeah, I think it makes me grow. And sometimes there's pros and cons to that, where the pros are, you want something done right, you're going to do it. But on the flip side, when you get into that repetitive motion of like, hey, we're shooting a movie, I'm filming it, I'm directing, I'm editing, then it's just coming from my perspective, where I'm not opening up to people for their ideas to tell me, hey, is this even good or not? I'm thinking, oh, this is good, this is going to be great. Then the movie comes out and people are like, well, it would have been better if you had input on this particular project. So it's a learning process for sure.
Yeah, that. So you mentioned Woody Allen. I'll tell you, the his movies are. I mean, it's all dialogue, isn't it? It's all dialogue, and you can't. For me, I can't stop watching because it's just nonstop. It hits you with all this dialogue.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love his style because it, like you said, it is all dialogue driven. It's heavily dialogue driven. And I think even as a filmmaker in my career now, part of me is, you look at a Woody Allen film and like, it's not another, like, whoever he's playing, if he's playing a therapist, or he's playing just a guy struggling with relationships, or whatever the key may be. When you're watching a Woody Allen film, like, underlined, like, that's all about his personal life, like
Yeah,
relationship problems. Like, you're watching Woody Allen, like, he just probably changes his name to whoever.
right.
And I think sometimes I question myself because of his success, and like, like, okay, people like his movies because of that. That's a reason why they go to a movie. He's going to release another film, and it's like, you already know what to expect. And
Yeah,
sometimes I question myself, like, maybe I would be a better filmmaker if I put more of Vinny seen on camera.
right.
Like, all right, something I struggle with, and like put that in the film. Or if it's, but for me, I mean, just like, as like being a musician, you don't want to put like too much of your personal life out there, where it's like, oh wow, this was, like this film that I just recently did, Ramshackle, that's coming out, it has nothing to do with me. It's just like my thought process of, well, what if this happens? Let's put it in a movie. And I feel like, I think people that personally know me, they'll watch the film and be like, did this really happen to you? Like, is that why we're watching it? Like, are you trying to like secretly reveal like this other like dark side of your life? And it's like, no, 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 it has nothing to do with me. It's just something I just came up with on the whim. um,
Yeah,
but you think, like, maybe if I do put in personal stories, of heartbreak or struggles of, things we've experienced and went through, what if I got a little bit more personal and open about some situations and throw it into film? I'm sure more people could relate to it. But am I at that level yet? No.
right, right. Yeah, it's just all one of his movies is just his anxiety, his internal dialogue.
Yeah,
Anxiety is, you know.
right.
So,
Yeah.
but it's got to be a scary thing to put that stuff in there. Those elements that really hit home with you.
Yeah, and I did that. I tried doing that, and it personally, for me, it it helped me in ways, but it was kind of being embarrassed about it too. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I released this, especially putting stuff on the internet because it's there forever. And you're like, oh crap. And people that do know me, like there was, so for an example, I had a lazy eye my whole life, and
Right.
it affected me like the way, girlfriends would treat me, or, potential jobs or this or that, or even bullies going like, hey man, what are you looking at? You got a lazy eye. What are you looking
Yeah.
at?
Yeah.
And that bothered me for like, for my whole life. And I said, what if I make that a topic for my film? Like maybe that will help other people that are dealing with the same thing. And
Right.
I wrote this short film, and I like, made it. I didn't really even release it like, that to that many people, but it did help me. It was like therapeutic, going like, oh cool, got that off my shoulder, like got that off my chest.
Yeah, I could imagine. I mean, even it would probably touch somebody or help them if it wasn't a lazy eye, but they could whatever they had, they could relate to their whatever they got going on. That everybody's got something,
Yeah, yeah,
if they're honest, that you're sort of nervous about or whatever, or it's a thing to overcome.
right.
Mike Jones wants to know, where is Vinny from originally, and how does he think growing up there affected his getting into movies?
Yeah,
And Mike, I think, came in a little late, so you did touch on this earlier, but you can answer.
yeah, no worries. So, Mike, yeah, I'm originally from Vacaville, California. It's the northern part of California, about an hour northeast of San Francisco. And of course, growing up there, were a lot of movies, Flubber and Robin Williams movies, which I mentioned. Of, Mrs. Doubtfire was made in San Francisco, not too far from me. So, being able to grow up and be like, oh, San Francisco, ooh, and Sacramento out, a little bit further to the east, and um, I just grew up in a small town, small for California, and I think because I was, one of the younger filmmakers, I think it had a lot to do with my style as far as like when I would shoot films, I was so involved with my community. I would even call the mayor and I'm like, hey, I'm making a short film. Do you want to make an appearance if I write a character for you? Are you willing to do that? And just having like the community support of being in a small town actually boosted my career versus like I couldn't imagine if I was like living in Detroit or Chicago or something where there was hundreds of like aspiring filmmakers, everyone's doing it, and it's like, oh, you're making a movie, yeah, well, so is David, and so is John, and so is this one and this person. And for me,
Right.
it was like, oh no, no, Vinny is the video guy in town. Like, you want a video, go see Vinny. Vinny's making a movie, or you have a movie idea, go pitch it to Vinny. And that was very cool. I had a touching moment where someone from my hometown reached out to me and they were like, hey, when you were on public access TV, like, it gave us something to look forward to. And if they told me that like 20 years ago, I'd be like, oh, yeah, cool story, bro. Right on. Yeah, that's neat. But now that I'm older, and one of the, persons passed away, and, the husband was like, yeah, you have no idea like how much it meant to us to like sit there and like basically watch you grow up on TV. Like it was fun to watch. And I'm
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
if I could impact somebody like that, that's insane. But no, I'm thankful for where I'm from, my roots, and I think if I lived somewhere else or lived in somewhere like Los Angeles, or it would be more difficult, and I don't think it would have the same outcome. I probably would have maybe gave up many years ago and would have been like, okay, whatever. And how did it affect getting
Your
into the movies and my writing style? Well,
writing style. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The same thing with the writing style is just being community oriented. And when I write a film, I try to get the community involved. It's like, I need a film location. Well, maybe I'll contact a local real estate agent and kind of like, mend something with them and say, hey, look, I'll put you in the credits, and, this will give you exposure. If you're helping me, I'm helping you get exposure, and you're giving me a location to shoot a movie. So it works that way. And some of our favorite movies, and I'm sure you could agree, David, is like when you watch a movie, like you don't realize the setting of the story, like how important, like that's a character in itself.
Yeah.
Like you could watch, you just name any movie, like The Water Boy or something, or just whatever, and be like, oh well, that town, like you remember those towns and those, just how the people interacted and how crucial that was. So I always think of that too. Like, just you got to involve the community and get them involved, and if they're backing you and you're doing a good thing, then once the movie's filmed, then hey, hopefully you'll have a good response, a good outcome.
Good question, Mike. Yeah, that was going to be one of the questions I asked you is about the location is generally set. I know I reviewed a movie that was from the 30s, a lot movie called I Walked with the Zombie, and they did it all on the set because that's what the budget called for. But I think it was down in the like involved voodoo in the Caribbean or something. And I thought, imagine if they could have went there and filmed as the location, being one of the actors, it would have just went over so much better. But it probably would be a huge budget. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, I agree, and that was one of the questions I was going to ask. How big of a role does the filming location make in the film being a success, or just not happy with it?
Right. Yeah. No, it's like, I'm in the tri state area now, and I remember being a kid watching dozens of movies, and they're shot in New York and Midtown Manhattan and Central Park, and you're like, man, that's the dream. I want to do that. Like, I want to film a movie in Lower Manhattan and include
Hmm.
all the buildings. Like, that would be so cool. And then I've had the opportunity to do that, and it's like, and then now it's, yeah, I wish I even was talking to a friend out in California, and I'm like, I really wish I had more stock footage of like my hometown where I could just be like, hey, let me insert some scenery shots and let me write a story that takes place there. And so that's always fun.
Yeah, that's like those movies, like the '70s were great for like movies, like horror movies, like Basket Case, where they would just do commando and film without a permit on the streets of New York, and the way it looked back then, how it looked like a horror movie, and so it was so important. Yeah, Manhattan back then. uh,
Right.
Yeah, and you see these movies restored in 4K now. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, just shot on like 8 millimeter film.
Yeah, and it's cool too. Like, I mean, I to be able to look back at some of my films and to rewatch some of them and be like, wow, I'm so glad I made the decisions of like film locations. And I'm like, yeah, I filmed in front of that restaurant. I used to eat there all the time. I used to go to that park. I used to have dates there. I used to go to this place. There's a film I did. It's called Mystery Under Misery. No, I'm sorry. No, a whole lot of views. And I shot that, and basically that film is available on YouTube now. It came out in 2012, and it basically revolves around people in my community. And I was a big hockey fan. I played ice hockey for a few years in my youth, and I actually filmed part of the movie at this ice skating rink. And it was just kind of like, we were talking earlier about putting myself into these projects
Yeah,
without being too personal. And I'm like, and people were like, wow, you're a good actor. You're good at ice skating. And it's like, well, did you know that I used to be, an awesome hockey player? But to throw
right.
that in there, but to be able to look back at it now and have that as like a photographic memory and video memory to, who knows if I have kids down the line, I can be like, look, hey, I used to skate there. I used to play hockey there, and I was in a movie there, So I think that is cool to have that sentimental value. Even what 2012, 10, 11, 12, 13 years ago now. So it's that's cool.
Yeah, no, it's great to be able to incorporate, yeah, the locations. Like we went last year and saw this cemetery from Night of the Living Dead. I had never been there, even though it's so close, and you live probably not so far from it either. But wow, it's just something so iconic like that. The location is like like a movie star.
Yeah, and stuff like that. Like, I love watching like the YouTube videos, not as often as I should, but looking at iconic film locations, and it's just amazing to see how much the camera plays a role into that. Where you're like in Blairstown, New Jersey, where they filmed Friday the 13th, and you have YouTubers that are like, well, this is what it looks like here, side by side comparison, and you're just like, oh, it's so much smaller, or it's so much bigger in person than it is on camera, or
Right.
and it's cool. Like as much as the big budget studios, we're seeing movies come out of Universal Studios and Warner Brothers and all that. It's cool, because it's high quality, of course. But like, there's something about like watching a movie that takes place in like middle of America, of a town you never heard of, and they're shooting in real houses and shooting at real restaurants and the local library, and you're like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
even if I got to that level, I think if like a major studio came to me and said, hey, we have an offer, let's shoot a movie and here's the script, I'd be like, great concept, let's do it, but can we do it like guerrilla style, independent? Can we go shoot it in Louisiana, or like just somewhere in Utah or wherever, just to like make it more authentic? And I think movies can feel that way. It's like nowadays the quality of 4K cinema, watching it on a big screen, you're like, oh yeah, look at this movie, look at the set. Like I can't even watch it. It's not even real. I can't get into it. But if you're looking at like, an actual set, someone's filming at a house, you're going, that's cool. I can believe it.
Yeah, I'm a fan of it. Yeah, I think, well, it comes back to the enjoyment of what we started the whole conversation of the 8 millimeter, the reel to reel footage that we used to like, and there's, I mean, it can't be beat, really. I mean, but I get what you're saying. I do. I mean, the studio stuff looks great too. They build all the sets like in the new Nosferatu, and that's a feat in itself that they built all those locations. But yeah, using real sets, I enjoy watching that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, Mike is in the comments talking about like North Carolina, and North Carolina, you got The Walking Dead and all these shows that are coming out. And it's a big hub, and a lot of people are like, hey Vinny, why don't you go to LA? Why don't you pursue film in Hollywood? And I spent a dosage, there, a portion of my life, and it's just LA's got its own thing going on. And for me, my look on it was so pretentious, and you got to climb the ladder, or you have to have, oh, your great grandfather, he wasn't a studio executive, so you can't get a job, or it's all about connections. And to be able to see that and be like, oh cool, here's another movie that takes place in another state or is shot in another state, that's not California. That I think that's so cool, especially just watching even like Western films, and you're like, wow, did they really film that in Wyoming? Or did they really film that in Nebraska? That's so cool. Um,
Right.
we do get tired of seeing the same movies, and it's like, oh, there's the palm trees. Must have shot that in like downtown LA or Burbank. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Right. Yeah.
and yeah, a lot of great film locations in North Carolina, and that is a plus. Like I'm sure even in Ohio, it's like,
Yeah.
Ohio doesn't look like California. Pennsylvania don't look like California. Doesn't look like New York. It's got its own style. So it's like
Yeah.
to be able to shoot a movie in a real town, of like a small town, it just gives a different perspective and makes the whole story come up to life too.
Yeah, we using the same concept that the location is an actor. Yeah, that's one thing about Ohio. That's why they're shooting some movies here, is that we have a lot of the European influenced churches and buildings and archways and stuff like that, that they, when they need that look, it's all right there. They haven't torn it down yet.
Right. Yeah, that
You
is
know.
true. Yeah. No, it's hard to, California's so modernized. It's like, uh,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, let's go film at like, let's do a horror film, and we need a house that was like built in the early 1900s. Well, you're not going to find anything older than 1950. There,
Right.
everything's so new. You come to the East Coast, New Jersey, New York, PA, and even a portion of Ohio, and you're like, wow, this house was built in
Uh-huh.
1865 and it's still standing, and it's like, that's cool.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Mike Jones says, "Don't get David started about Ohio." I know I do brag about Ohio a lot, except in the middle of winter. But yeah, I mean, we got a lot going for it. But it's like probably the same thing where you're from too. You got there's just more history. That's all. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, no, good conversations for sure.
All right. Let's see. Where do we want to wrap it up? You are working. You're in post production on your new film, which I wanted to ask you. What's the title and what's that mean?
Yeah. So Ramshackle.
Yeah.
Um, so the inspiration for the film, I was filming baptisms at my church, and I was hearing all these stories of all walks of the earth. Like you could just sit there and imagine these testimonies of like, people that were struggling with addiction, and boom, they found Jesus, and now they're saved. People went to prison and they were locked up for almost half their lifetime, and then they're like, wow, I just gave my life to Christ. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe there's some movie story somewhere in that, right? And I was like, well, I don't really make those type of movies. And I think with the big rise in like faith-based movies kind of being like, you know up and coming, it's like, you have the Chosen series, and you have the I Can Only Imagine, and you have Jesus Revolution, and all these films that are getting international attention. It's not just like, oh, well, I have to be a Christian to watch those movies. It's like, no, it kind of caters to everybody, which is really neat to see how that whole genre of faith-based films are attracting audiences worldwide. So I took that in consideration, and I said, let's be honest, let's watch some faith-based movies. They're, the acting is cheesy, the topics are kind of like, not something appealing to everybody where they're like, oh, okay, that's cute. They took a film and it revolved around a specific topic in the Bible. I get that. Okay, cool, that's cute, whatever. But the quality of those movies were like so, degraded for a long time. And I said, well, maybe I could be the person to change that, or at least get my foot in the door. So I did want to, as a Christian myself, I said, I think I can be okay to finally put out, a faith based film. So I wrote this film called Ramshackle. I always think of like catchy titles as far as filmmaking, something where it's like, wait, what did he just say? His movie's called Ramshackle. Like, what the heck
Right.
is that?
Yeah.
And in the book of Job in the Bible, there's a moment where this character, this figure, his name's Job, and he was just like having a conversation with God, and he's like, I feel like I'm in a ramshackle. And I was like, is that even a real word? Like that is so is so bizarre.
Right.
Like, hey David, how was your day? Oh, it could be better. I'm just in a ramshackle over here.
Man,
And
I'm gonna borrow that from time to time now. But yeah, I
yeah,
know this
yeah.
is interesting. So this is something Job said in the Bible.
Yeah, so then I thought, well, let me translate it. What does that really mean? And it was just, struggling and overcoming and putting the two words together, and like just that bridge of like, yeah, I'm struggling and I want to overcome whatever I'm going through, and it's just that median of just
Wow.
like being in there. And I thought, well, yeah. And then once I wrote this film, it's a short film, so it's always hard to give away, but it's a girl who's basically struggling with relationships and just anxiety, depression, and toxic relationships and addiction and drugs on top of that. So she's just spiraling down, and she just needs something to focus on, and she's basically in a ramshackle. With this film, I'm super proud of it because it's one of the first films, or maybe not quite the first film, but one of them where I decided to incorporate original music. I know you and I were having a conversation last time we talked, David, and I was like, yeah, I think that's the direction I want to go to. Is the problem with this industry that we're in is there's so much stock music available, and it gets overused and it's repetitive. I was just watching a film the other day, and I'm like, yeah, I could tell they stole that from like the YouTube studio library. Like,
Right.
where it comes. You're like, oh, I heard that,
Yeah.
same beat, and you're like, that's not original. I heard that in 20 other short films. So I said, I want to write a song, and writing is something I enjoy doing. I like singing when nobody's around. And
Right.
I said, I like this, when I was making this film, or working on the script for the film, I was going to church a lot, and one of the aspects of why I love going to church so much was the worship music and how those songs touch people. And I was thinking back to like when the Titanic song came out and Celine Dion did that song, My Heart Will Go On. And
Mhm.
it just pulled to so many people. Like they just sat through like a disastrous film. And then at the end, it's like, oh man, now I have to sob and listen to this, like, really depressing song. And it was like, so I thought, well, you know what? Maybe that's what I got to do with this film. The film's 13 minutes long. And hey, let me make a 2-minute song that will basically kind of recap what happened and how this girl felt. And I ended up linking up with a singer that my mom used to manage back in California. And I said, hey, I know you haven't done music in 20 years. I know it's not your thing. I'm not a musician. I can't, like, I got a piano that collects dust and I got to, play guitar. And it's like, I need a C, D. Oh, my fingers hurt. I quit. Like, I gave up so easily.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
musically, yeah, I have nothing. But then with my writing capability, I came to her and I said, look, I got this film. I want to sing it, or you could sing it, somebody can sing it, and yeah, we're super pumped up about it, and that will release like around the same time as the movie does, whenever that is. So something to look forward to. If your viewers want to check out some of my work, see some of my films, see the interviews that I did with bands, it's up all on my YouTube channel, Vinnie Langdon Show. Check it out. Would appreciate you just checking it out. You might like something. Um, but yeah, no, it's good. And going forward, people always say, "What's your next goal? What's your dreams?" And like I said midway through this interview, is I just want to keep doing, eat, sleep, breathe, film 24/7 until I'm in the coffin, and someone
Right.
can say, "Hey, that Vinny guy, yeah, he actually enjoyed his life. He did what he loved to do," and hopefully that will set an example for other people that we all get caught up in bills and life,
Yeah.
you know, raising families or whatever. But it's like, hey, at the end of the day, we have ourselves and we got to please ourselves before we can please others sometimes.
Right. And yeah, if you make art and you're in it in any capacity, yeah, that's the best advice. Do what you like for yourself,
Yeah.
Um, it gets to be a job if you're doing it, if you're just going through the motions or whatever. But there's nothing like, if you're a creative person, there's nothing like seeing that artwork, and that's what's important. And all the other stuff will eventually come. But that's yeah. So Vinny's links in the description for those watching in the future. So click on it, go over there and watch his new projects. Look for Ramshackle, which is a great name, and that's a great story. So one more question about that? Is that something that you knew? You knew the Ramshackle story, or you just kind of came across it at the same time?
Yeah, no, I mean, Job was always a favorite story in my, learning, reading scripture and stuff. And I always had moments in my life where I was like, dude, I can relate to this character, struggling with depression or just, overcoming certain situations in life, and always reflected on that. But I think I overlooked the story so many times. And I said, again, I go to film festivals, I submit films, and it's like, man, I've won best comedy, best directing, best acting, but I'm not winning like the grand prize. Why is that? Well, maybe I should start doing dramatic films. And when I was again listening to these testimonies from church and people saying like, "Oh, I was struggling. I almost, did this. I almost did that. Almost ended my life and that. And then I found Jesus and I got saved and I'm okay now. And life is, a little bit better than what it was." And I thought, that's a good heroic story right there. So I said, man, I should probably incorporate this into my next film, and I hope that the film will people will learn something from it. Is the film the highest quality? Is it one of the best films I made in my career? Not necessarily, but as far as the story goes, it's very sensitive, and there are sensitive topics that we tackle in the film, and I just hope that young men or, even women will just kind of take something from that and say, wow, that was me, or that is somebody I knew, or, I wish, someone that lost a life because of addiction. Like, I hope they can like look at this and say, I hope, so, Aunt Susie or somebody doesn't go through
Right.
this situation. I hope they can see this film and it just gives them hope.
How do
Yeah.
when you say it's not the best quality, what aspect do you mean?
Yeah. So this film is challenging because it is technically the first film that I allowed somebody else to film, right? So yes,
Oh,
it is my vision. Um, was it me saying, "Oh, let's put the camera here, zoom in on them," and I would have shot it totally different. It probably would come out different. So the cinematographers that worked on the film, we talked about earlier, Vinny, do you write and film and edit your own stuff? Yes, I do. So this was like the first time in my career where I was like, you know what? Let me put the trust in somebody else and see if they could
yeah,
do a decent job. And, they did the best they could. So it's a learning process, but I think, at the end of the day, something I'm proud of because, I could have kept a story inside of me and said, I'm not telling nobody this, but it feels good to like, talk about these things and let
yeah.
it out. So,
No, it's great. It's great to get the insight on it. Mike Jones said, "Excellent story. Looking forward to watching the film." And Vinny, what do you think about Guy Ritchie's filming style?
yeah, no, that's a good thing. Yeah, no, it's interesting because yeah, I'm trying to think like, yeah, that's good. I personally haven't seen like enough films to be like, oh, I love this style, or I think of this, or I think what I have seen, you know, it it's up there, right? Obviously, he wouldn't be Guy Ritchie doing his thing if and be selling multi box office winning box office hits and stuff like that. But um, yeah, it's just every filmmaker has their own style, right? You look at people like Kevin Smith, and he got the Mallrats, and he's got that franchise going. You look at what George Lucas did with American Graffiti before stepping into Star
Yeah,
Wars, and
that was
where's
that was that was
where's
great. Yeah, that was just
yeah,
great. I,
and,
I I could put that movie on anytime.
and just like we were going back to like referencing like someone like Woody Allen, like or even J.J. Abrams with all his, sci-fi and all these, fantastic films, and you sit there and you're just like, everyone has their own style, and I think like for years, and yeah, okay, I've made 50 short films, but like 50 short films, I'm still developing my own style. People are like, hey, I've seen 10 of your movies and they're very similar. They have that comedic sense of humor, they have your sense of humor rubbed off onto them, and that's cool, and maybe that's the direction I'm supposed to be like headed towards, right? Like, okay, I'm a Christian, and I love hockey, and I love music, and I love this. If I take all those aspects and I throw it and spit it into a film, maybe that's where I'm supposed to be. Um, but yeah, no, definitely. So you just got to find your style. It's just like music. Oh, I'm going to play rock music. Okay, let me play jazz. Let me play classical. Let me play punk rock. Let me do this. And you just hope that like one of those genres will just like push you to where you want to be and need to be. So as a filmmaker, it's very similar. You just, okay, Mike, maybe I'll do a horror film and I'll be the next Rob Zombie or, George Romero. And it's like, damn, Vinny made that movie. That was so good. Like, that was like amazing, And it's like, wouldn't have known it if you don't try. So,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see this one. And the song is, I got a sneak peek. It sounds great. Really great idea. Great idea with the whole ramshackle idea. Anyway, but the imagery looks really nice. I'm trying to think. Well, I don't even know where I've seen an image of maybe an actress.
Yeah, you've probably seen. Yeah, we dropped a movie poster for it. I did on
Okay.
social media. Um, yes, yeah. Step out to the mold. Yeah. But yeah, no, we dropped it, and yeah, no, really proud of it in most aspects. So I'm like, okay, see what happens.
Right. All right. Well, this has been awesome. I'm glad you spent some time. I told you 20 minutes. We went an hour. We could go longer. You'll have to come back when the movie gets done, and we'll remind everybody you got to watch this movie. I
Yeah,
really appreciate it, you coming by,
yeah,
and a lot of good stuff. Learned a lot of good stuff here today.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, once again, thanks for having me. Check out the YouTube channel to keep up to date with me. I'm not really big on social media, but YouTube's the place to be. And
Right.
whether I drop a film in 6 months or in 2 days or 3 months or every day, whatever. Just keep following and see what happens. And don't be a stranger. Feel free to comment. I read them all. So, open to feedback or whatever. So it's one of those things where it's a community effort, definitely.
Right. Awesome. Vinny, again, thanks for being here. Commenters, thanks for commenting. If you're watching in the future, Vinny's links in the bottom, so go on over and subscribe. And thank you for watching this Vinnie Langdon edition of Severely Cinematic.